we've been getting sporadic word out of Snowden in Moscow, but now we have a full statement that's being released in conjunction with WikiLeaks. Some interesting explanations for why he did, what he plans to do in the future. So we're going to read you a few quotes from that and then respond. So first, just a couple of snippets that I loved. He says, "A little over 1 month ago, I had a family, a home in paradise, and I lived in great comfort. I also had the capability without any warrant to search for, seize, and read your communications, anyone's communications at any time. That is the power to change people's fates. It is also a serious violation of the law." He goes on later to say, "I believe in the principle declared at Nuremberg in 1945. Individuals have international duties which transcend the national obligations of obedience. Therefore, individual citizens have the duty to violate domestic laws to prevent crimes against peace and humanity from occurring." Now, you can obviously go online and read the full statement. It's quite extensive. But what we're taking out of this statement being released is that he is now accepting all of the forms of asylum that he's getting from these different Latin American countries. And in addition, he's hoping to get asylum in Russia until he's able to travel. Temporary asylum until he's able to transfer over to Latin America.
So he made a couple of really great points in the letter. Number one is he said, look, now that Venezuela has offered asylum, and I have accepted it, I officially I have legal protections, right? So when the United States says that we will not allow you to go to Venezuela, like for example, when they thought he was on the Bolivian president's plane, they literally made the plane land in Vienna. They wouldn't let it land in Portugal. They wouldn't let it cross the airspace of France, etc. He's saying, well, that is actually illegal. According to international treaties, you can't do that to Evo Morales, the president of Bolivia. And if I were on the plane, you couldn't do it to me because of international law. So wait a minute, you're saying I gotta get you because what you did is illegal, and I'm willing to do something illegal to get you. Well, that makes no sense.
You're operating under the assumption that the United States gives a shit about international law,
well,
which I think
right.
we have seen. I don't know, throughout history. I was going to try to put a timestamp on it, but they just plain old don't. But it's interesting. I mean, you know, I think we put a lot of blame on the United States for the grounding of the Bolivian president's plane. But that's where you see Europe playing the exact same game. So first everyone's up in arms. The EU can't believe that they were being spied on by the United States. And then a couple of days later, oh, well, we can't let this plane fly through because Snowden might be on it. There's a lot of hypocrisy to go all around.
I still am baffled by I'm baffled at how this works. I'm baffled at the fact that he doesn't have a passport still makes a difference. Get on a plane and fly, get on a plane, fuel it up, and fly around stuff and just go. Like I get it. Clearly, it can't happen.
There's so much airspace that he can't cross without possibly being grounded and taken into
right. But that's a whole new the airspace, the crossing. That's a whole new thing. I mean, I get it. Now that's put a wrinkle in it that a week ago we didn't think was a possibility. That why you just can't. Why does Venezuela or Bolivia care at all that he doesn't have an American passport? And why does Russia care?
Right, so that's the interesting part. If you were going to get on a commercial airline and Boeing says, hey, I'm sorry, man, or Lufthansa says, I can't put you on the flight because you don't have a passport, right. We get that, right? But if Venezuela has granted him asylum, and I think what it was that they had not yet granted asylum back then, right?
10 days ago,
but if they've granted asylum, they can send their own plane and be like, hey, listen. And, of course, I get into like Bourne, legacy, whatever, like mode, and I'm like, oh, he should take a car ride to Uzbekistan, and from Uzbekistan go to like Nairobi, and from Nairobi go to Havana, and then go to Venezuela. Right,
or take the Hyperloop.
Right, but you can't do it on a commercial airline if you don't have a passport. But they got to get him a government plane if they're going to do the asylum. And at that point, I'm totally with you. Who cares if he has a piece of paper? You're saying I think this guy is would be a political prisoner in America. I'm offering him asylum, so of course I don't give a damn what the American government did with this piece of paper. Right?
I don't. But I find it fascinating that I'm stunned that it's this difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it seems to me that, and you would know the answer to this better. If Russia wanted to help him, they could help him more.
Well, Russia is already helping them, but I think that Putin is playing a very careful game here, in saying we'll grant you asylum, but only if you stop releasing documents that damage our friends, the Americans.
But if he goes ahead and does that, and he gets issued a Russian passport or something when he gets temporary asylum, I don't know if that's how that works. Let's be honest, no one does.
Right. I don't think the Russians don't. No.
Then does that settle it? If he's got a Russian passport, is that somehow enough that we're like, oh no, then we can't stop the plane?
We have no idea.
People do whatever they want because technically the transit zone in Sheremetyevo in the airport, it's still on Russian soil. So it's not like if Russia wanted to, they couldn't go in there and get him and extradite him to the United
that's
States.
my
So
favorite
all these technicalities. Give me a break. And so Russia is helping him by just trying to wash their hands clean of it, and yet at the same time not really directly interfere.
I love Putin's excuse of, no, it's a transit zone. That's not technically Russia. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, so can I take it then? Like, if you send in foreign troops to take the airport? My guess is that Putin would think that that was Russian territory.
The guy wrestles bears. I think he would send people into an airport.
And there's no plane that can fly from Moscow to Caracas in the
I know.
world?
I know. Isn't that amazing, too?
No way.
There's
Well,
got
they would
to
have
be.
to cross Europe, I would imagine.
Okay, but what are they going to do?
They would ground it like they grounded the plane of the Bolivian president.
What I'm saying is if it has enough fuel, right, if it doesn't need to stop, what are you going to do? Shoot it down with the Bolivian president on board? No.
Obama said he wouldn't be shooting any planes
Right, wouldn't
down.
be shooting-
He did offer a
said
little.
that.
Right, I love that, by the
little
way. I know
calm
you
for
probably already
everyone.
talked about that, but like I won't shoot any plane. We're not going to shoot the plane down. Like he'll do whatever he does. Like it's not that big a deal. Well, then apparently what he did was not that big a deal.
But it's interesting because it also puts the onus on the pilot. Remember originally when he was first in Moscow and all of the journalists ended up taking that flight to Cuba, assuming that Snowden would be on it, it was going to be up to the pilot or not whether he wanted to divert the route and try to not cross American airspace. And so can you imagine being that pilot?
Oh, yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
have to make that call at the
Yeah,
moment.
I'd take
Do
a
I
sick
want
day.
to be a global enemy of the United States or help this guy out?
And
Yeah,
two other things from his letter that are really interesting. He said, look, I did not partner with a foreign government to guarantee my safety. People are talking about, oh, he's aiding the enemy, the Espionage Act, et cetera, right? Well, he makes a compelling case because he's having a hell of a time. It's not like the Chinese or the Russians were incredibly welcoming. They're like, I don't know, dude. China's like, you take him. And the Russians like, he's in a transit zone, man. I ain't got nothing to do with him. I ain't got time for that. Okay? Ain't nobody got time for that. So obviously he doesn't have some secret government partner. It's obviously not espionage. I mean, his current state of existence proves his case.